Welcome to this episode of Reach Minds, Thoughts for Your Life Journey. Today, we're diving into what it really means to build a diverse and meaningful career. One that brings us not just success, but fulfillment and purpose. My guest is someone who made that shift. Instead of letting others dictate what he should do, he began asking himself the deeper questions and took ownership of his own career path. By managing his career intentionally, he crafted a life that reflects his values, passions, and vision for the future. Welcome, Ian.
Nice to meet you, Nita. It's great to be here, and thank you for the invite.
Just in terms of your career spanning over 25 years, tell us a little bit about, Ian, what you've done in terms of the roles that you've had before we dig into what's guided your career decisions.
I'm a trained engineer. I started off designing chips as a living because that was really the only thing that I could do when I left school, and I went to university and studied that. Then went into Intel, and they thought that I could talk a lot, so I ended up working in sales and marketing. I was lucky enough to move to the Valley for a number of years. Then in Asia, got some senior positions, and then got some senior positions in Russia before I moved to Arm, where I ended up in the C-suite and helping change industries. Having left there, got a bit bored, founded 2 or 3 companies, sold 2 or 3 companies, joined a charity. I've had a really interesting and exciting career. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I can see that as well, how proud you are of your career. Now, one of the things I'm quite interested in, what you were saying when we were thinking about pulling this together, is that you're committed yourself to creating between 1,000 to 3,000 jobs in the UK. Tell me a little bit about that.
If you look at where the UK is, we're very good at doing research and development. We're not very good at scaling companies. And so I've been lucky enough to be in companies that scale and been around the world and see how this works. And so when I left Arm, I set myself a challenge of how to go and scale and put 1,000 to 3,000 proper jobs. And when we were discussing before, I talked about how we got to that and how I got to that conclusion. So when you've been successful in your life and all of a sudden you come to a transition and figure out what you want to go do, it's really hard. And a lot of people know what no is, but it's really hard to find what yes is. And I struggled with that, and I had to spend 9 months not doing anything on gardening leave. And I looked at myself and said, what challenges do you want to set yourself? So I did a very unusual thing as an engineer. I looked at my career as an engineering project, and I did the current state. So I wrote everything down about family and life and my CV. And then I thought, how do I achieve what I want to achieve? And the only real way of looking at that in my mind was looking at the end state. So I imagined myself dying at 83 in a number of years' time and having my obituary read by my best friend over my coffee. And I thought, what would I like in my obituary? And so I wrote my obituary as if I died when I was 83 years old. And then I did a gap analysis as a typical engineer, what I've currently done versus what's in my obituary. And so 3 things came up, one of which was stay married to my wife, which was a very difficult conversation to have about what her goals and aspirations were. And that was very insightful. The second one was raise £1 million for the ovarian charity that I became vice chairman of, called the Eve Appeal. And then the third one was to put 1,000 to 3,000 proper jobs in the UK. And that came about because I saw where Arm was going, and I wanted to continue the growth that I did at Arm and inspire and help grow other companies. And that's what we're trying to do.
Now, for those of us who don't know what ARM stands for, Ian, perhaps you can explain it to us.
It's the first time we met was at Arm. Arm is a Cambridge-based company that's been going nearly 40 years now and designs chips. Actually, designs IP. So it doesn't design the chip; it designs the designs that go into chips that power almost all of the world's mobile phones, most of the world's tablets, all the hard drives, most of the servers, and so ships billions of designs a year to lots of companies without actually manufacturing everything. And so that was a British company that was bought by SoftBank a number of years ago. And I left because of the acquisition by SoftBank. And so I wanted to go and grow other businesses outside of that. And I thought 1 to 3,000 was a big stretch goal. Never set yourself small enough goals that you can go hit. Try and set yourself big goals and go push yourself. So that seemed like a big goal to me.
And where are you at with that kind of 1 to 3,000 jobs? Where are you?
It depends on how you measure them. So there's factories being set up by one of my companies that will do a few hundred jobs. I've hired a whole pile of music people into my music company. I've did a software business that hired a whole chunk of people. So I'm some of the way there, but I'm not satisfied until you exceed it and then go do another big hairy goal.
And in terms of sort of your career decisions or what maybe companies to invest in, what kind of factors do you take into account before you move forward with them?
It's I've been very lucky in my life that I've met some very inspirational people. And I've also been very lucky in the fact I've lived in the US and Silicon Valley for a long time. I've lived in Asia for a long time. I know a whole pile of people. So when you get an idea, and ideas come from very strange places. The music company I helped set up with a musician was over a coffee in a coffee shop in London. And he had an idea, and a friend said, "You should go speak to this crazy guy called Ian Drew." And we sat down over a coffee and started a company. And so that is now one of the world's leading AI generative music companies. So ideas come from various places. I like to look at ideas and then bounce them off a few people who I trust. I like to look at ideas and go, am I going to be a leader or a follower in this? And what value added can I bring to a situation? I like to look at companies and go, can I make a big difference to something or somebody? And in the music industry, it was clearly, how do you employ musicians to pay them above union rates and better than Spotify, but create new opportunities? And that's what we've been doing there. In the software space, it was around how to put security into all the devices that aren't mobile phones and servers. And so we came up with a unique Linux solution for that. And in the energy business, it was, how do you enable greener energy coming into the UK? So worked on connecting Iceland to the UK with high voltage DC cables. It's around looking at the next 3 to 5 years, not the next 3 to 5 weeks, and figuring out how to get over the next two horizons before anybody else, and then work backwards of who you need to make sure is on the same bus as you and get the customers lined up. And I've been lucky enough to be reasonably successful at that.
It sounds like what you were saying earlier on about looking to the end of your life and then for your obituary and then working backwards. So in terms of digging around that a little bit, and you were saying there was a gap. And I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that gap was about what kind of skills or behaviors do I need to develop and learn in order to move along the path you wanted to go.
It's all good writing your obituary when it's 20, 30 years out. But how do you get there? And one of the skills that I learned when I was at Intel was about how to manage your own career slightly differently to most people. It's great getting on the executive ladder and you get your first management role. And mine was looking after a bunch of call center people. And so it was like, oh, great. And you're all excited. But you're really competing against your peers there. And how do you stand out? And you all go on the same management courses and you all sit there and you do the same training. And I figured out that's great, but how do I make a difference? So early on in my career, I started doing a lot more self-analysis. And so my Boxing Day routine was to sit down and figure out not what the next job is, but what the job after that is. So 3 to 5 years, look at the job that I really want to go do. Not the stepping stone job, which is the next one, which is a tactical, but more strategic. And I used to sit down and write down all the skills that I needed, not for the next job, but the job afterwards. And I used to analyze my previous year of how well I did against that, and then figure out the skills I needed, not just to go on courses, which are important, but also to demonstrate them. And so I used to actively try and find ways of demonstrating skills that I needed to get on in my career. And only through identifying those myself and driving them myself was I able to go and change a dynamic of being the same as everybody else. And so for me, taking control of my career for 20 odd years, using some of those tools and being very hard on myself. Everybody does annual appraisals in work. I was much harder on myself than any of my bosses ever were. And so I was able to take control more of where the destiny of my career was. I never actually ended up in any of the jobs I wanted to go do, because people used to approach me and go, you've demonstrated skill set X, Y, and Z, and there's this role that we've got over here. So I was able to go and have conversations with different departments and different entities based on the skills that I demonstrated that were unique to my cohort. And that was really around me taking control of my own career.
What were some of the kind of skills did you learn that have stayed with you, Ian, after all these years, that you still have them as a part of your toolkit?
The first one, and I learnt this really badly, was you have to have a team. And when I first became manager and then got bigger in an organization, I used to say, it's all about me. It's all about me. I need to demonstrate this and I need to be everywhere. And I used to fly around the world and almost had a heart attack and felt really bad. And so I had to go and look at myself and go, how do other people create teams? And so I sat down and I looked at some people that I thought were good at creating teams and some people I thought weren't. And the teams that were created were almost the most diverse teams. The teams that didn't work as well were carbon copies of the manager. And so I learned to look at jigsaw puzzles in my head. I look at teams as jigsaw puzzles, and everybody is unique and has a different shape, and how do you put them together? And then how do you create and mold people into the roles that you need that can go and help grow them. So it's more about how do you create leaders around you and how do you create a momentum where people can take risks and push things and feel comfortable doing that, where it's not the command and control mechanism, because teams work much better when you're not there than when you're there. So I figured that out, and I've used that skill set over the last 20 years really to help grow my career by growing people underneath me and around me and mentoring me. And that has really helped me not to be the command and control, but to be the leader of leaders. And it's always better not to be the smartest guy in the room. By the way, let me just add one final thing on that.
Yes.
When I talk about diversity of teams, that means ethnicity, it means gender, it means social skills, but it also means creating a framework where the communication of that team is understood by the whole team. The language of the team, the way that you communicate needs to be in a way that everybody understands it. And so it's not just about how many women, how many men, Asians, all the rest of it. It's around how do they communicate and how do they build trust with each other. And that is a skill that needs developing both as a leader, but also coaching the people around you as well to do that. And I'm really pleased that a bunch of people who work for me have gone on to have successful careers.
I love the idea that, or the concept that you're talking about. You don't have to be the smartest person in that room, that you can help the people around you to grow and be maybe smarter than you and not see that as a threat. Because as we know, some organizations work in a very much command and control. Maybe partly, maybe this is my story, because people are insecure. And so they feel they need to command and control because they don't have that much security in themselves. And what you're saying is almost opposite to what some organizations are doing. And it's enabling other people to thrive, to go on to do other things in the world. So you're having an impact on individuals and where they are in 10 years' time because they'll remember you.
So I'll feed that into one of my previous answers. You asked me how I look at businesses and grow. I now have a cohort of people that I've worked with that I can call up and go, by the way, what do you think of this? And does this work? And so that network effect, because you've helped coach and nurture people, comes back to you tenfold when you call them up and they'll take your phone call and give you an answer and maybe help you even more then. And that is part of the real networking effect that you can create with your career if you think about it in a logical way.
That you can call on people when you need to, because they're a resource for you.
Yes, very much.
And it's a resource which is reciprocal rather than you scratch my back and I'll scratch your back, I think you're saying.
It's trust.
Yes.
We've worked together. You've helped me. I understand the way that you do business. And it's a trust environment that you're creating. It's a relationship that you don't abuse, but you can enable things to happen because of it.
So my kind of curiosity is also around, Ian, what about the sticky moments in your career or your business. How did you navigate, or how do you navigate those sticky moments, if you have any?
Unfortunately or fortunately, I've had lots of sticky moments and lots of failures. And one of the things you have to realize is if you're at the edge of something, if you're creating something, you need to be at the edge. If you're not at the edge, you're not really creating something or copying. And so there will always be sticky moments, and there'll always be, how do I get out of this and how do I find a solution? If you take three different views of it, one, every time I employ somebody, I help them with their mortgage. I'm responsible for people's mortgages. And so the sticky problems are mine, and I have to help people get through it. And so I have a sense of loyalty and a sense of responsibility to people. And so there's no walking away from something. You have to have a sense of passion and pride in people, and that rubs off as well. So you can't just walk away from something. The second one is most people want to see you succeed, unless they're direct competitors with you. And so how do you build trust and relationships with people that you really want to grow outside of your company? And then the third one is having the moral fortitude to say no. Having the responsibility to be the lone voice in the room going, the king has no clothes. And there's certain times when you have to do that, because I can't go to sleep at night knowing that a bad decision is being made without voicing it. Now, you do need to have a time when you go, disagree and commit once you've voiced that responsibility, but sticky moments come from big decisions. And if you don't use your voice in the big decisions, you're not a leader. But also leaders have to go disagree and commit and get behind the decision and move forward. And so there's times when I've had really difficult decisions and I've had to have some moral fortitude of walking away. And that's been big decisions. But I look back on all the big decisions I made, and I'm actually pleased that I made them. And I know people who haven't and have sat there and gone, I wish that I'd done something else. You can't change history. You can only change the future.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so wise. So, what might be some of the values in there, Ian, do you think?
Loyalty is a big one for me. When you work with me, you always work with me. If you've worked with me for 3 months and you need a job reference 10 years later, yeah, I'll do that for you. And everybody who works for me knows that my phone number is still the same and can call me up and ask for help. And I will answer the phone and I'll give them advice. Loyalty is a big thing for me. Moral responsibility is a big thing for me. Everybody knows the bad people in organizations, the deck chair sitters, the people who grumble all the time. Organizations spent way too much time trying to get them right. It affects organizations. You need to figure out moral responsibility of making sure that you're paying everybody's mortgages and doing the right things right. And so you need to have some of that. You need to have a North Star guide you for 3 to 5 years. Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? So I've talked about how I do it myself, but I also look at companies and strategic plans of where you want to be in 3 to 5 years and work with investors on that and make sure the team is on board with where you're going there as well. And then finally, the ability to be wrong. Being intelligent enough to go, I thought X was the answer, and I've looked at the data and Y is really the answer, and not be stubborn and go, yes, you're right, let's go that way. And that comes from being not the most intelligent guy in the room. You're quite often wrong. And as a manager, as a leader, it's better for you to be wrong and take all of the hassle that goes with that, and all of the successes bleed down to your team. And so you stand with your team, you stand alongside of your team, making decisions even when you're not there. And so the ability to be wrong is a very big leadership skill in my mind.
I think you are right. And what you're talking about for me, Ian, is not only having the kind of IQ around the strategic and being business smart, it's also having the emotional intelligence as well and nurturing that. And I think from what you're saying, that's what makes the difference. That makes the difference.
And I think having a diverse team enables that. Because you have to understand culture, you have to understand language, you have to understand communications, you have to understand motivations of people to really create a diverse team. And so if you create a diverse team, they will challenge you. And therefore, if people are challenging you, you are sometimes wrong. And therefore, make sure you understand that you can change direction. And so you have the ability to look at your team and go, wow, they've just created something. And that reflects very well on you as a manager and a leader. You don't have to do it all yourself, but you have to allow that diversity to come through if you want to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness and the ability of the team to create something.
So if you were to give some advice to someone who's feeling insecure about their career direction or what they want to do as a leader, what would be the advice you would give them?
3 pieces of advice, and all of which I wished I'd have known myself when I first started. 1, whatever anybody says to you, you own your own career. Yes, go on all the training classes, go do all the right things, but go create opportunities to shine and make a difference. Number 2, failure is almost always better for you in the long term because you learn more from it. So don't fear failure. Push until you can fail and then figure out how to make it better. If you're not failing, you're not pushing hard enough. And 3, trust the people around you. Build the trust, build a network, figure out how 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Make sure that diversity of thought, of inclusiveness is part of your strategic thinking, but create a team that you'll be proud of in 10 years' time. And that will come back in spades to help you.
Thank you very much, Ian. That's been a really insightful conversation, and I didn't ask you all the questions I had planned, so I flowed with it. So thank you so much for playing with me on this podcast.
You're more than welcome, and I wish you success.
If you're interested in working with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or www.nitasharma.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, why not consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you have access to your podcast, and leave a review.